Origins. The Monday Morning Memo for March 20th, 2017. There are two kinds of advertising. The goal of the first is to make yours the company the customer thinks of immediately and feels the best about when they, or any of their friends, need what you sell. This is called a relational ad campaign. The goal of the second is to cause the reader, listener, or viewer to buy something from you immediately. I began my career writing that second kind of ad. It's called direct response. I was good at it. Today, I write only the first kind. If you have the staying power to build a relational ad campaign, you're going to need to remember your origins. You're going to have to write your Genesis story. There are two kinds of staying power. The first is financial. Here's my advice. Don't launch a relational ad campaign so big that you would not be able to sustain it indefinitely. If you say,
I can fund this for 6 months, but by then it needs to be self-supporting,
then you're spending more than you can afford. It's impossible to predict the moment of breakthrough, that moment when all your previously fruitless efforts will begin to radiate results like a newborn sun. This is why you have to have the second kind of staying power. Emotional staying power. 3 or 4 months into your campaign, you're going to begin to panic. But the only thing worse than never launching a relational ad campaign is to launch one and then abandon it. Relational ad campaigns are never about having the lowest price. A customer who switches to you for reasons of price alone will just as quickly switch from you for the same reason. And there is nothing that some other company can't do a little worse and sell a little cheaper. People don't bond with companies so easily as they bond with people. We bond with people we like, people we feel good about, people we think we know. Here are 3 examples of well-told stories of origin.
My dad was a house painter. He taught me to sand and scrape old paint until my fingers were aching and raw. But I wanted to make him proud, so I always worked hard. I'll never forget the day we opened up our brown bags at lunchtime and he said, "Son, I'm proud of how hard you work, but I hope someday you'll get a job where you can wear a tie." And because I wanted to make him proud, I decided to open a jewelry store. I watched as my dad took his last $700 out of his sock drawer to help me get started. But he never got to see that store. He died just before it was open. I lived on wieners and beans for the next 11 years until I finally figured it out. Lose the tie and be a regular guy, just like your dad. That's when things turned around for me. I've been sharing the story of that $700 with young entrepreneurs in high schools and colleges for years. America's newest and best Kessler's Diamonds is about to open in front of Cabela's next to the Rivertown Mall in Granville. I'm Richard Kessler, and I'm hoping to become your jeweler.
Your origin story doesn't have to be your first ad. Some of the most successful stories of origin have been introduced after the advertiser had already become a household word.
Tom Heflin was a railroad conductor. His wife had a sister. That sister had 2 little boys. One day, she took those boys on a train to Winslow, Arizona to spend a few days with them. Tom took those boys out in the desert to collect rocks. One of the little boys grew up to be a pediatrician. The other just kept picking up rocks. I've never been able to explain what got into me that day, but it's never left me. It has something to do with how the beauty of nature is made permanent and becomes transferable only in natural gemstones. Blood red rubies, piercing blue sapphires, emeralds greener than the greenest grass, and diamonds. Rocks that are perfectly colorless, clear, and pure. Rocks. Call me crazy, call me naive, but I don't think gemstones are here by accident. I think God put them here, and He made them beautiful, and He made them rare, and He made them hard to find so that you and I might give them as symbolic gifts to those rare and hard to find people who are beautiful in our own lives. You know who I am, and that's all I've got to say today.
The power of your origin story doesn't depend on your category of business.
I was a 10-year-old boy holding the flashlight for my dad while he worked on an air conditioner for a customer. His name was Duncan Goodrich. He didn't talk much, but there's a certain kind of magic that happens when a son holds a flashlight for his father. I held it steady and quiet, and Dad talked to me while he worked. He said, "When a person needs help, you respond right away, not when it's convenient for you." He said, "Always do the right thing. Always do what's right." And he said, "The Gettle Iron Horse is a magnificent machine. Nothing else even comes close." That was the first night I held the flashlight from my dad, but it wouldn't be the last. At Dad's funeral, I realized that every time he handed me that flashlight, he was passing the torch. And my dad believed in Gettle air conditioners. So I bought the company. Gettle, Goettl. It'll keep you cool, but it's hard to spell. Now you can count on us to respond right away and do the right thing, always. No one knows air conditioning like Gettle. Goettl.
Search your heart and mind. Find your story of origin. Make yourself vulnerable. Richard Kessler told us that he was once so poor that $700 made a huge difference in his life. The late Woody Justice told us that he believed in God, and he believed gemstones are here for a reason. Ken Goodrich told us the memory of his father drives his actions to this day. What's the story of how you got to where you are now from where you were? You really need to share that story. Roy H. Williams. P.S.
When I was 7 years old, I held my father's head in my hands as he took his last breath and died. A thing like that stays with you. It helps you understand that relationships, people, are what life is all about. You've got to tell them you love them. This is J.R. Dunn. So now you know why I became a jeweler. Fine jewelry is one of the ways we tell people we love them. When I got older and fell head over heels for Anne Marie, the love of my life, I didn't have enough money to buy an engagement ring. She married me anyway. Go figure. But I can promise you this. If you're thinking of getting engaged to the love of your life, come to J.R. Dunn Jewelers in Lighthouse Point. No one in Florida, no one in America is going to give you a better engagement ring for your money than me. One of the great joys of my life is to make it possible for guys to give the woman they love the diamond she deserves. There was nobody there for me when I needed an engagement ring, but I promise I'll be there for you.
You are standing in the snow, 5½ miles above sea level, gazing at a horizon hundreds of miles away. It occurs to you that life here is very simple. You live or you die. No compromises, no whining, no second chances. This is a place constantly ravaged by wind and storm, where every ragged breath is an accomplishment. You stand on the uppermost pinnacle of the earth. This is the mountain they call Everest. Yesterday it was considered unbeatable, but that was yesterday. As Edmund Hillary surveyed the horizon from the peak of Mount Everest, he monitored the time on a wristwatch that had been specifically designed to withstand the fury of the world's most angry mountain. Rolex believed Sir Edmund would conquer the mountain, and especially for him they created the Rolex Explorer. In every life there is a Mount Everest to be conquered. When you have conquered yours, you'll find your Rolex waiting patiently for you to come and pick it up at Justice Jewelers.
I'm Woody Justice, and I've got a Rolex for you.
Darn it, when I said extra bracing, I didn't mean a few extra boards. I meant add bracing at the gable end there, and extend the braces to the sidewalls here. You don't want to put your name on something built half-assed, do you?
Not an easy man to work for, my dad. Insisted on extra deep foundation holes, extra bracing, the works. His name was on it, and they were going to build it his way. So when two of his workers went out to build barns their way, it was easy for them to underbuild and underbid their old boss. Out on the 9th concession, each of them built a new barn, right near the barn my dad had built with extra bracing. 3 barns from 3 builders, right next to and across the street from the Arrow Farm.
Until '84, when the storm howled through and the farmers walked out to find my barn the only one standing. I told them that extra bracing was important.
Since 1968, James Sylvester Enterprises has built over 1,152 pole barns in this area, and there's still a real Sylvester with his name on the barns, making sure they get built the right way.
Have you ever driven a rusted-out clunker? Well, at one point in my plumbing career, I drove a rusted-out Toyota van. Reverse gear didn't even work all the time. And one time, a favorite client had to actually push my van out of her driveway in her high heels. Why was I driving that? Because I'd had to leave a partnership with someone who turned out to have very different ideas than I did about business and honesty. And in order to leave, I had to leave with nothing. But it wasn't even a question. I'd rather starve. I've always strived to be, and I've taught my boys to be, an approved workman. So if I wouldn't take liberties with the truth then, I sure as heck ain't gonna do so now. I'm not in need of work, but I am in need of honest plumbers to join my team. Plumbers who would rather walk away than do it any other way than the right way. If that's you, or if you know of someone, email Andy@WyattWorks.com.
Consider it done at WyattWorks.com. License number 30185.
I'll always remember the beer can cold trick. The head tech at Butte taught me that when charging a system with refrigerant, I'd know it was charged when the line was beer can cold. Hook up the Freon, start charging, and when the line was beer can cold, stop. Now, it worked okay-ish, and I guess 95% of Sacramento AC techs still use that trick, but it's not the right way, and yesterday's shortcuts create tomorrow's problems. While working for Trane, a major manufacturer of AC systems, I learned the real science and engineering of installing and maintaining a home's AC. And I couldn't believe how much of what was standard for AC techs were lazy man shortcuts. So I promised myself that when I had my own company, we'd ditch the shortcuts, the rules of thumb, and the beer can cold and get her done mentality and use an engineering approach. I'm Todd Baltzley, and that's how A&P Heating and Cooling became the home of the sincere engineers, where second opinions are always free and our installs have a lifetime guarantee.
Better get your affairs in order. That's what I heard 7 years ago as my doctor turned pale at my test results and scheduled me for emergency heart surgery. That's when I decided to retire and move down here, where I'd always wanted to build my dream home, raise my kids, and live without regrets, which we did even after.
Good news. False alarm.
I'd already built the best damn AC company in New England, so that itch was scratched, I thought, until the AC in my dream home was so screwed up and the local AC guy so unprofessional that even my wife said,
"They'd never get away with this in Milford."
I had to redesign and redo my home's AC myself. Then my neighbors had me redo their homes too. Once word got out, every Tom, Steve, and Susie started calling that AC guy who actually knows what he's doing. Boom! Griffin Service was born as the AC company with techs who know what they're doing. For professionals you can trust, call
GriffinService.com.
License number 1250697.
Frankly, when I moved here from up north, it was to semi-retire, build my dream home, and raise my kids. But as a commercial and engineering-grade AC professional, I was shocked at how badly the AC was screwed up in my dream home. I had to totally re-engineer the system just to be comfortable at night and prevent mold from growing. And it wasn't just my house. The residential AC companies in town don't know how to spec or install systems for Florida's climate. It seems ridiculous, but it's true. They all slapdash install the same stock system here as they do in Connecticut or California, and it just doesn't work. So after my neighbors had me redo their AC systems, word got out about an AC guy who actually knew how to make systems work in Florida. And every Tom, Steve, and Susie brought me to the AC problems no one else could fix. And that's how Griffin Service became the home of the Florida rated AC system. I'm Tom Casey, and if you want an AC service that's Florida rated, I'm your guy and Griffin's your company.
GriffinService.com.
License number.
My whole life, my dad's been my hero and my best friend. So when he realized his teenage son wanted to do what Dad did when he grew up, work in the family heating and air business, he gave me the apprenticeship he wished he'd had. Years of intensive technical and certification courses, plus loaned out as free labor apprenticeships for on-the-job training the hard way. He even sent me to spend months grinding at the hard science of engineering and building AC systems from scratch for any environment or performance envelope on Earth. For decades, Dad and I worked shoulder to shoulder building the best damn AC business on the East Coast, specializing in design-built systems. When I semi-retired to St. John's, Dad moved to Old Town. So when I unretired to start Griffin Service, I only had one standard: Dad's. We do things right with techs who actually know their craft and AC systems designed built for Florida's climate. I'm Tom Casey, and if you want pro-grade, Florida-rated AC, find me at
GriffinService.com. wyattworks.com.
License number 1250697.